put it up later on a YouTube or something. I'm trying to make sure that people keep getting in. A couple of people are falling out and coming back. So I will be and that's why we ask you to keep your mics muted, folks. That's the one. And there's now so many of you that we have to go to a second page to check. So I'm checking your mics, but please keep them muted if you can. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Jack to get Michael to pipe in the haggis for us.
Okay, welcoming everyone to the first time we've done a Zoom Burns night. I'm not sure how Robert Burns would have, well, he was pretty much looking forward, you know, so he was a hopeful sort of guy. I'm really just welcoming everyone. I'm amazed at how many people signed up to come to this. And of course, we have people from right across the time frame. So we have people who are in the west coast of America, where it's you know, late afternoon. Us here and our friends on the east coast, it's the early evening. But we have friends in Scotland and Ireland, and for them it's after midnight. So it's just totally amazing. I'm seeing Liz Weir in Northern Ireland, or as some of us would say, the north of Ireland. Yeah. And Aileen Carr, who is over there in Perthshire in Scotland. Hi. Yeah. So it's just terrific. And of course, it's Robert Burns that brings us all together. I've often said in the past, when I've been at other Burns events, that I see a big parallel between, believe it or not, Bob Dylan and Robert Burns in many ways. So there's another transatlantic connection. But I'm going to hand back to Wendy now, and then I think eventually to Liz.
We're going to Michael. Michael, we're ready for the haggis to be piped in.
Oh, okay.
Now, normally we would parade the haggis around and everybody would get a chance to carry it. We're very sorry. You can see why we can't do that. But if you have a haggis, now is the time to place it in front of yourself, because Michael's going to pipe it in for us. You. Okay. Welcome, Sean and Amy. I think you guys just got here. All right, off you go.
Okay, so we now have the address to the haggis, toast to the haggis. Our haggis is from Texas, and it's in a can. But you know, it's pretty good. You know, it's not bad at all. And you know, I'm a big fan of haggis, and I kind of I'm a fan of the best haggis from Scotland, and yet this
or Texas.
This is actually quite good. I won't be using a knife because we'll come to that later. Okay, so the address to the haggis. Fair fa your honest sonsy face, great chieftain of the puddin race, abin them all ye tak your place, page, tripe or thern, weel are ye worthy o' a grace as lang as my arm. The groaning trencher there ye fill, your hardies like a distant hill, your pin would help to mend a mill in time o' need, while through your pores the dews instill like amber bead. His knife, see rustic, his knife, see rustic labour dight, and cut you up wi' ready sleight. Your trenching, your gushing entrails bright like ony ditch, and then, oh, what a glorious sight, warm, reeking, rich. Then, horn for horn, they stretch and strive, deal tak the hindmost on the drive, till all their wheel-swelled kites belive are bent like drums. Then all good man maist like to arrive, they thank it hums. Is there the hour's French ragout, or olio that would stow a sow, or fricassee would make ye spew, with perfect scunner looks down with sneering scorn for view on sic a dinner? Poor devil, see him out his trash, as feckless as a withered rash, his spinel shank, a gid whiplash, his neve a knit. Through bloody flood or field to dash, oh, how I'd fit. But mark, the rustic, haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread, clapping his wally neve a blade. A blade. He'll mak it whistle, and legs and arms and hands will sned like taps of thistle. Ye powers will mak mankind your care, and dish them out their bill of fare. All Scotland wants nae skinking ware that jops and luggies. But if you wish a grapefruit pear, gie her a haggis.
And now, if you have haggis, please feel free to dig in. Ours is cold, so we're going to eat it later, but the cat is showing a lot of interest, so I'm going to put the lid back on that right now. All right. And the cat is also sitting on my order of ceremonies, so excuse me. Thank you. Aileen Carr is going to do Bayan Castle Wall for us. Over to you, Aileen. Keeping in mind that it's about 12:15 where Aileen is.
Hello to you all from between Perth and Dundee in the east coast of Scotland, just a bit north of Edinburgh, for those of you who've been here before. Family legend had it that Robert Burns' grandfather on his father's side married into the Keith family and worked for the Earl Marshal Keith in Aberdeenshire at Inveruggy Castle. He was a Jacobite, and with the failure of the 1745 rebellion led by Bonnie Prince Charlie, his lands were confiscated, which meant that the family suffered financially. So Burns' father and his brothers all left home, travelled south looking for work. So Robert Burns grew up listening to the stories of the family's ruin with the failure of the Jacobite Rising, and that influenced his politics for all of his life. but it also provided him with the stimulus for some really lovely songs. So I'd like to sing you one of his Jacobite songs now. I think the Jamie in this song is probably the old pretender. Prince Charlie being the young pretender, his father James VIII was the old pretender. I think it probably refers to him. And just because some of the language is a bit difficult, in the final verse there's a word tint, and tint just means lost. By yon castle wall at the close of the day, I heard a man sing, though his head it was grey. And as he was singing, the tears soon came. There'll never be peace till Jamie comes home. The kirk is in ruin and the state is in jar. Delusions, oppression, and murderous wars. We will might, we dare nae, we'll sit, but we can was take blame. There'll never be peace till Jamie comes home. My 7 braw sons for Jamie drew sword, and now they lie in their green beds in the yard. It brak the sweet heart o' my comely old dame, but there'll never be peace till Jamie comes home. Now life is a burden that bears me down, since I tend my bairns and he tend his croon. But till my last moments, my words are the same. There'll never be peace till Jamie comes home.
Thank you, Aileen. And now we've got Susan Hamrick doing one of the most famous, maybe not the most famous poem, but it has one of the most famous lines, the best laid plans of mice and men. Over to Susan.
I even have a mouse. The dog almost ate it.
Oh, I muted it.
Now, yeah, really. Some of the things you may not know about this poem is that John Steinbeck,
Is that muted?
out of his 1937 novel of Mice and
Trying on my phone now.
from a line contained in the penultimate stanza, the 1997 novel, The Best Laid Plans by Sidney Sheldon, also draws his title from this line, and as does another novel by a Canadian author, Terry Fallis. And also the first stanza of the poem is read by Ian Anderson. Who knows who Ian Anderson is? A lot of you do. Anyway, my husband said he did. It's in the beginning of the 2007 remaster of One Brown Mouse by Jethro Tull. And he adds the line, but a mouse is a mouse for all of that. And at the end of the stanza, which is another reference to another of Burns' songs, is there for honest poverty, commonly known as a man's a man for all of that. Sharon Olds is a poet, and she used Sleekit Cowan Beastry in her poem. And another author, Douglas Adams, used it in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. And also Monty Python used it in the sketch word association. And the last author that probably everyone has read is The Once and Future King by T.H. White. So at this point, I will do the English version because I don't want to torture everyone with my terrible interpretation of the Scots language. And Robbie Burns wrote this in November of 1795 on the turning up of a mouse in her nest with a plow. And you can follow along on the Facebook page. So here we go. Small, crafty, cowering, timorous little beast. Oh, what a panic is in your breast. You need not start away so hasty with your hurrying scamper. I would be loath to run and chase you with murdering plow staff. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union and justifies that ill opinion which makes you startle at me, your poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt not, sometimes, but you may steal. What then? Poor little beast, you must live. An odd ear in 24 sheaves is a small request. I will get a blessing with what is left and never miss it. Your small house, too, in ruin, its feeble walls the winds are scattering, and nothing now to build a new one, of coarse grass green. And bleak December's winds are coming, both bitter and piercing. You saw the fields lay bare and wasted, and weary winter coming fast. And cozy here beneath the blast, you thought to dwell, till crash, the cruel plow passed out through your cell. That small bit heap of leaves and stubble has cost you many a weary nibble. Now you are turned out for all your trouble, without house or holding, to endure the winter's sleety dribble and hoar-frost cold. But, little mouse, you are not alone, and proving foresight may be vain. The best laid schemes of mice and men go often askew, and leave us nothing but grief and pain for promised joy. Still, you are blessed compared with me. The present only touches you. But oh, I backwards cast my eye on prospects dreary, and forward, though I cannot see, I guess and fear. And for me, this just kind of goes along with what's going on today.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Susan. And speaking of what's going on today, John Bodner, who's there he is, I found him, is going to do the Immortal Memory. John and I did our PhDs together in folklore and ethnography at Memorial University in Newfoundland. And he and I just recently co-authored with some other, with 4 other people, a book on COVID-19 conspiracy theories. And on January 7th, the book shot up in sales because of so much of what was going on in the world. And you know, you really like it when you do something that's timely and useful for the world, but that wasn't exactly the way we wanted to be.
Members.
That's not exactly the way you want to become a bestseller, you know? So over to John, he's going to do the Immortal Memory for us.
I had a little trouble with my mic. Can I get a thumbs up if people can hear me? Okay, great. Thanks, guys. Some of what this Immortal Memory is poking fun at Wendy and Jack and not meant to be disrespectful. So please bear with me in the good humor I hope that we can all find in the bottom of the
Oh dear,
lab.
I'm so sorry. John's mic is malfunctioning. What should we do?
So I've been told by our kind and generous hosts, Wendy and Jack, that the Burns Immortal Memory can be in most any form and cover whatever material I think is appropriate. So here's my irreverent and irrelevant presentation. I don't know who this guy is. I don't care about him. I didn't care about him growing up. And my path to Burns tells you everything you need to know about how I've managed to still remain remarkably ignorant of him. I grew up in a French Canadian and German immigrant household in a tiny hamlet in rural Southern Ontario. We had our own cultural heroes, and most of them were hockey players. I don't believe Burns could skate. I knew there was poetry because song lyrics rhymed, and we had to mutter through Flanders Fields once a year in class. But I didn't grow up in a household that celebrated poetry or ancestral homelands. Bit uncomfortable, what with the war and all that. Now, you'd think the French Canadians would be nostalgic, romantic, folk-songy folks, and they would have been, except that my childhood straddled the terrorist FLQ bombings, and so my French Canadian family kept a low profile in Anglo-Southern Ontario. Also, everyone I knew that harped on and on and on and on and on about being originally from Scotland were jerks. Yep, I had it in for the Scots. So I blithely made it through all these years untroubled by Robbie Burns. And then I moved away to university, which coincided with the emergence of pub culture in Upper Canada. Oh, everyone who could afford hardwood and comfy chairs were suddenly opening up old world pubs. They emerged like mushrooms after a rain, and with them came the folk singers, a veritable plague upon drinking time. I unfortunately fell in with a crowd that would prove to be lifelong friends, but were also Nova Scotians, where everyone is obliged to say they're from Scotland. They all claim to own a kilt, some claim to fiddle. I didn't realize how bad this conjunction of events would become until one of my friends invited me to a pub for Robbie Burns night. Who the heck's Robbie Burns? I asked my friends. You don't know who Robbie Burns is, they retorted. How can you not know who Robbie Burns is? I don't know, probably by having different life experiences than you. And then the pocket lesson began. Burns was born in 1759 to a spectacularly unlucky family. He somehow managed to get something of an education, made poems for pretty young women he was pursuing, sometimes successfully, and produced many, both poems and children, and many angry fathers of said young women. Back when you could make money off of poetry, he made money off of poetry, where everyone in Scotland loved him. And then he died in 1796. And then he was made a secular and national saint by people who hated England, which was pretty much everyone. So, said my friends, that's why we're going out tonight and listen to poetry, eat haggis, and get stinking drunk. Wait, what's haggis? My first Burns night ended with one of my friends standing on a table, screaming in a fake Scottish accent that the band was murdering his culture because they were playing a Stan Rogers song badly. He was wearing a kilt. I looked up. He was only wearing a kilt. We all got thrown out of the bar. Robbie Burns nights during the rest of my 20s was a long exercise in getting thrown out of bars or narrowly avoiding bar fights or narrowly starting bar fights. It's all a blur. And I'm really no closer to understanding who the hell Robbie Burns was or is. I somehow feel like in the former colonies, he's like Chinese food. He's not really Robbie Burns, just like whatever that dish that seems to be all cabbage is actually Chinese food. He's a kind of post-colonial cipher that's mainly used to sell bar nights and folk music and other stuff. We've turned him into a product. I'd really like to know the real Robbie Burns and what he means to Scots. The interesting thing about Robbie Burns, at least to me, isn't really his life as much as what he became after. A symbol, I guess, a key to unlocking a few hundred years of domination by a powerful neighbor, a way of meditating on grinding poverty and the eclipse of a people, their culture, language, and future. Someday maybe I'll learn all about him, or at least mostly about the people who worked hard for 250 years to make and remake Burns so they could make and remake Scottish culture. But maybe I just won't. Maybe all he's really ever given me is the perfect couple of lines to say every late fall when I start catching mice in traps. I'm truly sorry man's dominion has broken nature's social union. Thanks, folks.
Might be the best immortal memory I've ever heard. It was lovely. Yeah, Burns nights, for those of you who've never been to one before, have certain events that must take place. There must be a haggis, there must be a piping, there must be an immortal memory, there must be a toast and response to the lasses, which we've saved for last because it's just going to be so good. And there are generally recitations like Michael and Louise and Susan did. There's going to be a song and a story, a song for me story from Liz. Jack's going to close us out. But I'm actually breaking the rules slightly of a Burns night. It's not like God will not strike you with lightning if you choose not to sing a Burns song during Burns night, but it is traditional. But just because of all that has been happening this year and over the past few years in so many places, I'm actually going to sing a song that's written by someone else in honor of the songwriting tradition that Robert Burns started. He spoke to people where they were. He honored all the people. He didn't elevate poverty in a sad, sometimes people can take poverty and try to turn it into something noble. And he didn't play that game. He just wrote about the honest way that life was lived. So all of you who are T-Rexes, could you wave at me if you're a T-Rex? Okay. These are all people on a list that I used to be on when I was on Facebook that run nonprofits. And in honor of you guys and all that we have endured over the past 4 years and all that we have worked to make right in the world, and particularly for Julie, who is fighting a difficult battle, and for Scott, who is fighting a difficult battle, and for all of us, for Sarah, who just moved into a new house, for all of us who are dealing with getting back to not just making the world run better, but keeping the world together while we all figure out how we're going to get through this. This one's for you guys. A song by Karine Polwart, who's a Scottish songwriter, fairly well known. Yeah. The back of the winter is broken, and the light lingers long at the door. And the seeds of the summer have spoken in the light that grows by the shore. By night and day we'll sport and we'll play and delight in the dawn dancing over the bay. Sleep blows the breath of the morning away as we follow the heron home. In darkness we cradled our sorrow. We stoked all our fires with fear. These bones that lay empty and hollow are ready for gladness and cheer. By night and day we'll sport and we'll play and delight in the dawn dancing over the bay. Sleep blows the breath of the morning away as we follow the heron home. Sleep blows the breath of the morning away as we follow the heron home.
Amen.
Yeah, buddy. All right, and now we're going to turn it over to Liz, who's going to give us a story.
Okay, it's lovely to be with you from Cushendall, Northern Ireland. If I drive 5 miles down to the shore, I can look across and see the Mull of Kintyre and see beyond to the Paps of Jura. So this part of the world is very connected. And a lot of people, of course, left Scotland and came over here to settle in Ireland. And then a lot of them moved on over there to Appalachia and settled in the States. So I'm going to tell you a story, but before that, I'm going to read you an original poem that was written this morning by a friend of mine called Maura Johnson, a poet. And she's written it in the manner of Burns to address the great bard. She wrote it for something she was doing tonight. And this is in what you call Ulster Scots, Jack will be smiling to himself. Our Robbie was a sleekit cub, handsome, drithy, chancy, who never missed a chance to woo wee cutties, trig and canty. He tholed the labours of the farm, pricked with winds, poor and cold, japped wi' glaur from slap and moss, miry bogs to tame the bowl. So that's an original piece about Robbie Burns. So I thought a Scottish story might be in order. Thank you. Maura Johnson, poet of this parish. Here's the story. On the Clachan of Kintail, near the shores of Loch Duig, there was a fisherman named Willie. He had his boat pulled up for the winter and wanted to mend the forepart of the bow. It was all worn away. So he went out into the forest to look to see could he find a piece of wood to suit. Well, he strayed and he wandered and he wandered and he strayed longer than he meant to, and the darkness came down, and he found himself in a part of the forest that was unknown to him. And then he saw a light glimmering, and he hadn't heard about any houses in that area, but he was caught out for the night. It was a cold, damp, miserly night, and he thought if he could only get a place just to put his head down. So he knocked on the door, and he waited. The door was opened by a wee small woman who greeted him. "Oh, come away in, Willie, come away and sit yourself down, sit yourself down." And before he knew it, he was sitting in front of a blazing fire, and there in his hand was a good measure of whiskey. Oh, it was fine, fine, fine. The night wore on, and then a door at the back of the room opened, and in came two more small women, sisters of the first one, and they all sat and smiled at him. And he said, "I think it might be time to be off to my bed. Would there be a place for me to lay my head?" "Oh, certainly." And the three of them showed him into a room. All there was a big bed and a big chest at the foot of that bed. And he climbed into bed, pulled the covers up, and noticed the women were still standing in the doorway looking at him and smiling. He was a bit scared. He thought, "I'm not going to sleep here. There's something strange about these women. So sure enough, he was lying there pretending to sleep when he heard the door open. And he was aware that the three women were standing at the foot of his bed. Next thing, they opened the chest, and he opened one eye, and he saw each of them put a wee red hat in their heads, put the right hand in the air, lift the left leg, and said, "Mixty, Maxty, here's the way off to London." Shoo, shoo, shoo. The three of them disappeared. He thought, this is very strange, and he got out of bed, and there was another red hat, and he thought, I've always wanted to go to London. So he put the hat in his head, put his right hand up, lifted his left leg, and said, "Mixty, Maxty, here's the way to London." Shoo. And he found himself in a pub in London where the three women were sitting drinking dram after dram, very small measures in London, Anyway, he sat down and the hours took wings. He was drinking to match them and another one then. And the next thing he looked around, and there was the last of the three women with her left hand in the air, her right leg in the air, shouting, "Mixty, Maxty, here's the way off to Kintail." Shoo. He thought, I have to get out of here, but a heavy hand landed on his shoulder. It was the landlord. "Ha ha, small matter of a bill to pay. £73, 16 shillings and ninepence." "Well," he says, "but I don't have any money." "No money? Call the law." So the police came in, and Willie started to try and explain this strange story that they thought the man was completely cracked. And you know what? They thought they'd just hang him to be on the safe side. So poor old Willie was brought out. They'd built a whole platform. They led him up the steps. There was the hangman's noose put round his neck. And the hangman said to him, "Any last requests?" He said, "Do you mind if I put on my hat? It's a wee bit draughty." He put on his hat, put his left arm up, his right leg up, and shouted, "Mixty, Maxty, here's the way back to Kintail." Shoo! Willie found himself standing in the middle of the forest, the rope still round his neck, and attached to it the whole arm of the gallows. And do you know, ladies and gentlemen, it was just the bit of wood he needed to fix his boat. And that's my story. There's Wendy unmuting herself.
Yeah, sorry guys, I was having a hard time getting the arrow up there. Thank you, Liz. We're going to now turn to the toast and response of the lasses. For those of you who are new to a Burns Supper, this would be what would be considered, you know how when we were young and we went to picture shows, there would be a cartoon and then there would be a newsreel and then there would be the main feature, and sometimes mom would take the kids home before the main feature was on. These kinds of toasts and responses can be quite R-rated. And knowing Amy and Scott, I am assuming this one might even venture into X. So if you feel inclined to mute yourself or you have a small child in the arena, feel free to wander off and get a soda. But I am very, very much looking forward to Scott and Amy doing the toast and response. So I'm going to turn it over to Scott, and then directly after Scott, Amy will take up. They are both directors of arts spaces and centers, and you can imagine what their year has been like, given that they are both directors of arts and event spaces. So I'm very much looking forward to creativity being the product of sublimated aggression. Over to Scott.
Well, good evening, everybody. I hope that you can hear me. Thank you very, very much, Wendy and Jack, for hosting this. We're going to jump right into this. So, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Scott McDonald, very Scottish, and I would like to note that this is the first Burns night that I can remember attending, but it hopefully won't be the last, nor the last with most of you fine people. So when Jack and Wendy asked me to give the toast to the lassies, I said that I would think about it, but I wasn't sure if I could do it. Then they thanked me for agreeing to do it, and here we are. I have to confess that despite being named Scott and of Scotch-Irish descent on my father's side, his family was also from Nova Scotia, I had to go up and look what was expected from the toast to the lassies. My hopes were immediately dashed upon realizing that it had nothing to do with incredible dogs who save so many children from abandoned mine shafts each year, or a reference to the television show that I love, Psych. And as a devout researcher, I scoured the internet and I fell upon a site which describes the toast to the lassies as the humorous highlight of any Burns night. I'm not sure who wrote that, but no pressure, I suppose. The site goes on to say that the toast is designed to praise the role of women in the world today. This should be done by selective quotation from Burns's work and should build toward a positive note. I don't know if that means I should start on a note. I'm not going to do that. But this year, we are lucky to be able to count upon the involvement of many, many women, be it in the political arena, as here in the States, we elected our first female vice president in 244 years. In the health world, as women shone brightly in the face of the COVID-19 pandemic, as we saw countries where women lead, that the responses were quicker, more effective, and stronger. In sports, we saw equal pay become a reality for football players in Brazil and Sierra Leone. And counted among us tonight are many that contributed to the health, community development, the arts, politics, finance, and the list goes on and on and on and on and on. I'm fortunate to count many of these wonderfully intelligent women as my friends. So on to Robert Burns. He was a big fan of women, but however, not such a big fan of responsibility, commitment, or the withdrawal method, and is thought to have fathered somewhere between 12 and 16, or apparently, as I learned this evening, 19 children, with at least 4 women before he died at the age of 37. Now, for a fan of statistics like me, the implications of that are pretty mind-boggling. Assuming that there were no twins, that's 1 child every year since the age of 20. That's a lot. I've never really read too much Robert Burns, unfortunately, but I started to look through his work to prepare some of those selective quotations, and I found recommended and was struck by how alive and how relevant a lot of those poems and songs felt. You can really get a sense of the person behind the writing, and the 16 children by 4 women in 20 years seems less outlandish. I'm no Burns scholar, and reading some of this stuff and picturing the man behind it, it seemed like there were 3 types of writing that Burns did. First up were those poems where Burns is delighting in his conquests and showing what a lad he is. This one is thought to be inspired by Elizabeth Patton, a servant girl who worked in the Burns household. My girl, she's airy, she's buxom and gay. Her breath is as sweet as the blossoms in May. A touch of her lips, it ravishes quite. She's always good-natured, good-humored and free. She dances, she glances, she smiles with glee. Her eyes are the lightnings of joy and delight. Her slender neck, her handsome waist, her hair well beckled, her stays well laced, her temper white leg with an et, an A, C. For her A, B, E, D, and her C, U, N, T, and O for the joys of a long winter night. The second type of verse has a long lineage and was all too easy for a guy who likes to imbibe, like me, to recognize. It's impossible to read something like Coming Through the Rye, oh gin a body, meet a body, coming through a rye, gin a body, fuck a body, need a body cry. Or the fantastically crude 9-inch will please a lady, come read me dame, come tell me dame, my dame come tell me truly, what length o' graith, when we'll kid hum, will Sarah woman duly. I'm probably murdering this, by the way. The Carlin clue her wanton tale say ready. I learned a saying an Annandale, 9-inch will please a lady. And not imagine Robert Burns and his mates getting pretty severely boozed up before launching into drunken renditions of these and several others. Now, my research said that this toast should build towards a positive note, so after reciting some of Burns's cruder work, I'd like to take a look at the final category of Burns's work, those poems which go furthest to explain the multitude of women he was involved with. It's easy to imagine the average standard of wooing from farmers in the 18th century, and then to success that someone would have with verses like those from O Saw Ye Bonnie Leslie. To see her is to love her, and love her but forever, for nature made her what she is, and never made another. Thou art a queen, fair Leslie, thy subjects we before thee, thou art divine, fair Leslie, the hearts of men adore thee. So, to conclude, would you please be upstanding, and I'd like to finish with some final words from Burns as we toast the lassies. Old nature swears, the lovely dears, her noblest work she classes owe. Her prentice hand she tried on man, and then she made the lassies owe.
With that.
Amy?
You still there?
Oh, all right, here we go. I'd like to start by saying thank you to everyone for inviting me to give the response this evening. This is my first Burns night as well. And I relish the fact that as a twice married woman of a certain age, there are arenas in which I can still consider myself a virgin. Also, thank you so much to Mr. McDonald for his toast, though I'll say that asking a man named Scott McDonald to do a toast on Burns Night is a bit on the nose. Perhaps Mr. McDonald didn't think of the possibility of currying even more favor by naming himself Edinburgh McGlasgow. I'll give you that one for free, Scott. But thank you again, kind sir. Your toast barely mansplained at all. To Dr. Bodner, I will share a joke from the inimitable Billy Connolly. If I had a hammer, there'd be no more folk singers. As Mr. McDonald mentioned, this year we women have been recognized for many achievements, though we never are commended for the greatest achievement of all, which is keeping a straight face when a man repeats our ideas as if they were his own. Perhaps the coming year will afford us more progress so that our place in the halls of power are assured, our equity achieved, and our oft-bitten tongues can finally heal. You see, we're at a crossroads in this country, friends. To quote the most famous lassie, Timmy is in the well. For our purposes, let's say that Timmy is white cis heteronormative men, and the well is toxic masculinity and white male fragility. So come out of the well, gentlemen. We are not yet out of the woods, women, as evidenced by the demeaning op-ed in the New York Times exhorting Dr. Jill Biden to drop the honorific from her name once she entered the White House. To that end, I will misquote Janet Jackson. My name is Amy, the honorable representative from Bangor, if you're nasty. But what does feminism have to do with poetry? To quote Audre Lorde, for women then, poetry is not a luxury. It is a vital necessity of our existence. It forms the quality of the light within which we predicate our hopes and dreams toward survival and change, first made into language, then into idea, then into more tangible action. Like my esteemed friend Scott, I was only familiar with Burns' most well-known work and had not yet had occasion to delve deep into the deep cuts of the Burns catalog. So imagine my delight in finding a volume of his works called The Merry Muses. What fun, thought I, a lyrical exploration of art and inspiration. What I found instead was a work that by all rights should be wrapped in plain brown paper and only available behind the counter at sketchy convenience stores by showing a valid government ID. However, in perusing the poems, some of which Scott shared with us, oh, sorry, I lost you there for a second. I had to reboot on, so I will back up a little bit. I was only familiar with Burns' most well-known work and had not yet occasion to delve deep into the deep cuts of the Burns catalog. So imagine my delight in finding a volume of his works called The Merry Muses. And in perusing the poems, some of which Scott shared with us, I found Burns' prescience astounding. For example, I will share this bit of verse. When on my back I work like steel and bar the door with my left heel, the more you fuck, the less I feel. Look, I need a hard hitter. I need a deep stroker, not a garden snake. I need a king cobra. He got a beard, well, I'm trying to wet it. I'll let him taste it. Now he diabetic. I apologize. That was Cardi B at the very end, not Rabbi B. But without the enduring power of Burns' influence, what modern bard would have the courage to rhyme Punani with Desani? Perhaps someday the AWP Poetry Prize will be given to WAP. But what is 9 Inch Will Please a Lady, if not an older version of the band 20 Fingers' 1994 hit Short Dick Man? You know, don't want no short dick man. What is I Read You Beware the Ripples, ripples being Burnsian for gonorrhea, but an older version of Kool Modi's 1984 hit Go See the Doctor? After all, isn't Gif You Wad Be Strong and Wish to Live Long, Dance Less with Your Arse to the Kipples, Young Man, just another more poetic version of What Have I Done Stuck My Dick In? I will entirely leave alone the Burns poem, Cock Up Your Beaver, though. I was fortunate enough to spend some time in Scotland in my youth, so I was not surprised by the salacious content in some of Burns' seminal works, and I do mean seminal in the most literal of senses. From the frequency of its appearance, I guess the phrase ran down her thigh was easy to rhyme. I recall an evening at a pub in Scotland where my friend came back from the bathroom with this astonished look on his face. When we inquired as to what had surprised him so, he said that there was a condom machine in the men's room. Well, we were puzzled because condom machines were all over the States and we had seen some in Scotland. So we said, what's so unusual about that, Bobby? And he said, oh, you gotta see it. They're selling them in 6-packs. So I suppose you have to have something to do in the winter in Inverness when the sun sets at 3. As an American, our media has given us ample depictions of the full range of Scottish manhood. And by ample, I mean we have 2 choices. We have Jamie Fraser from Outlander and Hagrid. Thank God for Scottish men and their inventiveness, though. Without Scottish men, we would have no idea of the many and varied uses of sheep innards. From cookery to fuckery, sheep guts have us covered. Though to Scottish men, I would say let's focus on the innards of the sheep and leave the outards alone, okay? I mean, no disrespect to Scotland. It's people or it's livestock. My own ancestors came from Scotland and settled in Georgetown, Maine, a remote island far away from the madding crowd whose rugged coastline reminded them of home. I hold in my heart the lessons they brought with them to the new world. Be bold, love fiercely, strive mightily, and underpants are for suckers. So we have spoken at length of Burns' most carnally focused poems, at long length, in fact, perhaps 9 inches worth, but let's not forget the beauty of love and faithfulness in this poem. So fair art thou, my bonny lass, so deep in love am I, and I will love thee still, my dear, till all the seas gang dry. Till all the seas gang dry, my dear, and the rocks melt with the sun, I will love thee still, my dear, while the sands of life shall run. Robbie, dear Robbie, vanguard of the romantic movement, cultural icon, and pre-Instagram influencer, we owe you a great debt. I will close with the toast I learned in my youth, so lasses, raise your glasses and join me. Here's to the men that we love. Here's to the men that we fuck. We don't love the men that we fuck, so fuck the men that we love. To Burns.
Probably.
Okay then. Oh, Amy and Scott, you slayed it. Thank you guys. Thank you so much. All right, and now from the ridiculous and sublime, I'm not sure. What we're going to do is Jack's going to lead us in Auld Lang Syne, and he's going to explain the difference between Zine and sign. And then we're going to open the mics, and everybody who wants to say anything can say anything, and it's going to be kind of a free-for-all scrum. So just hop on chat, unmute your mics, have a good time. And it's sort of like the post-event bar room where everybody's buying each other drinks and talking about stuff. So feel free to hang around and do that. And thank you guys for such a lovely evening. I know you all needed this as much as we did. It's until we can be together in person. And let's also admit that via Zoom, you know, we were able to have Aileen and Liz and people that we couldn't have been together. And Kate's out in the west somewhere, and Susan's out in the west somewhere, and Tara's out there. We couldn't
John's
actually, and John's way over on the East Coast. John's the only person that's a half hour off because he's in Newfoundland, and Newfoundland is actually an hour and a half different in timing. It's the only place like that. So thank you guys so much, because even though we couldn't be together, I don't think of this as the next best thing we could do. I think of this as an awesome thing to do, because we brought so many people from so many places together and had so much fun. So over to Jack, and then y'all unmute your mics and go for it.
Okay, so you know, one of the things about Burns is that he collected songs. He was one of the early folk song collectors, and he and his brother toured around Scotland 2 or 3 times, basically doing a pub crawl, you know, going from pub to pub. And they heard lots of songs, and his brother, Gilbert, could write down music. And that's what he did. And Burns was noting down the words that they heard as they went round. And, sorry. One of the, it's not emotion, it's just, you know.
It's not COVID either.
Well, no, it's not COVID either. By the way, I've had my first shot. You know, I had my first COVID shot on Wednesday of this week. And I will get my second one on the 17th of February. And a week after that, I will be probably, you know, 95% safe. So anyway, back to Burns. One of the songs that he heard was this one. And of course, it's become, I like to think of this as the true Scottish national anthem, because it's an international anthem. And of course, everyone sings this all around the world every year as we approach midnight on Old Year's Night, on Hogmanay. And part of it is traditional, and part of it is Burns' own words, and he was brilliant at remaking songs. I mean, we heard examples tonight of extremely rude songs, very, very rude songs that he collected, but he collected them because they had great tunes, and he rewrote them, and he wrote new sets of words for them, you know, for more polite company. But he did it because the tunes were so great, and part of what he did. So let's finish off the night with, or this part of the night, with Auld Lang Syne. And I've been told to explain to people that you do not say Zine. There is no Z or Z at the beginning of that. It is a soft S. The other thing I should tell you is the tune that I'm singing it to is actually the tune that Burns intended it to be sung to. Which is not the one that everybody sings around the world, which was added to it much later. So this is, and I'm only going to sing a couple of verses, and
remind them to sing with their mics.
Yes, and mute your mics, because it's going to be just, otherwise it's going to be just a cacophony. But please do join in. Just give me where I can see it, yeah. Should all acquaintance be forgot, and never brought to mind? Should old acquaintance be forgot, and Auld Lang Syne? For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll take a cup o' kindness yet, for Auld Lang Syne. And here's a hand, my trusty fair, gies a hand o' thine. We'll talk a record where we walked, for Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll talk a cup o' kindness yet, for Auld Lang Syne. For Auld Lang Syne, my dear, for Auld Lang Syne, we'll talk a cup o' kindness yet, for Auld Lang Syne.
All right, y'all unmute your mics, unmute your mutes. Oh dear, I'm so.
If everybody crossed their arms, you could do it through all the screens. You could do it for Auld Lang Syne. Yeah, it's working. It's working. Let me take a picture. That's brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. You see, it does work. Even though we're far apart, it still works.
It does work.
It still works. Shake. Yeah, that's brilliant. Yes.
Okay,
All right.
cheers everyone.
Sláinte, sláinte.
Cheers.
Bye, Java.
Those of you who are past your bedtime, we understand. Those of you who want to stay and chat, unmute your mics and let's talk.
What's bedtime, huh?
Yeah, right, yeah. Liz doesn't sleep. I've never understood this about Liz.
I have a lot of energy to burn off. This is very pleasant.
Hi, Liz. Hi, Liz.
Who's that? Who? Where? Hi, Susan, David. Hello.
Yeah.
And you're not sleeping in a bunk bed tonight. These folks come and stay with me and have to stay in the hostel in bunk beds.
Yep.
Everybody, I want to introduce Sean and Amy. Their mic is muted and their camera is off, but those are the people that run the flats in Fayetteville, West Virginia. They have the most lovely, they call it Lafayette Flats, and they have writing residency. Well, it's now an artistic residency, and I did it in 2018, and they're just the sweetest people. And Sean,
Well, that sounds good.
yeah, Sean is retiring, so we all want to wish Sean well as he
You're not gonna-
finally
I'm
gets
about
out
to
from
come
under
in.
the burden of the workday.
My
Hello.
friend Marilyn McPhee is here from San Diego wearing her McPhee tartan.
Hello, Marilyn. Somebody's saying something, but I can't hear what it is.
Everybody's
Hello,
very
hello.
quiet.
Yeah. I've been-
Jade is another folklore graduate with John and me. She was in school with us, and you're in
All
California
right.
now, Jade, I think. She's a
I
researcher.
was going to mention the first Burns
can't
supper
remember.
I ever attended.
Mhm.
The pipe major who was teaching me the bagpipes was ill, and he sent me to the Plaza Hotel in New York City. And I was but 18 years of age, barely legal, and it was a very, very nice affair. Walter Cronkite was sitting at the table with me. And I piped in the haggis, which was glorious. And then the first
Yeah.
Burns night I played in North Carolina was very interesting because everyone was from India. And so was the food was delicious. But there was a graduate student who was from India but had done his undergraduate work in Scotland and insisted that he must have a Burns supper. And he hired a pipe band, and we performed for a very cross-cultural, interesting Burns supper with Indian food.
Wow.
Now, another time I was called to the Burns Club in Atlanta. My brother is a professor of English literature at New York University, and he was speaking on the immortal memory of Burns, so I went along. And they have a recreation of Burns Cottage in Atlanta. They have more money, they have more dollars than cents, actually. But it's a very, very nice club. And I look forward to the 25th of January every year. I usually play 3, sometimes 4 Burns suppers, but this is the only one, and I'm very happy to be here. Thank you, Wendy. I must say, I met Wendy and Jack, I think 2 summers ago. It was Wendy's debut performance on the Celtic harp at a wedding.
Oh, so it was. Yes.
And it was a lovely affair in an old inn in the mountains. And it was a chance encounter. And it's good to see you doing well. And I'm very glad to be here.
Is Aileen still there?
Yeah, Aileen's.
I'm still, can I just say that I tried to do a very tasteful song tonight and avoid the very muses, only to discover you've done it. I would have done it all differently had I known.
Aileen, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah.
Now.
We could have done a duet. We could have done a duet
on
on,
it. Yeah.
on Dainty Davy.
Yeah.
We could have done a Did You Harmony with the Auld Lang Syne. It wasn't very good, so it was fine that nobody else could hear.
I was singing away here as well.
Yeah, we all were. Yeah. I think my friend Maria Richardson has gone. I think she disappeared quietly during some of the more ribald events because she and I were missionaries together. And I think at a certain point she felt like maybe she just couldn't do that. But you,
And remember, I'm a very old lady now as well, Wendy, easily shocked.
What,
it was lovely to see you, Maria.
wait a minute, Wendy. Missionary?
Yeah, we were with Youth with a Mission. Well, I was in California. She was still in Tennessee, but yeah, we
This is something I didn't know about you. We're going to have to discuss this more.
Oh yeah.
That
Okay.
must be David. Was that David? That was David. I knew
Yes.
that was David.
Put bluntly, guys, I still believe in Jesus. I don't believe in a lot of the people who talk about believing in Jesus. You know, let's just leave it there, okay? You know,
Okay, okay.
Wendy, when I was a child,
Sarah, yeah.
when I was a child, I went to Scottish dance class 5 days a week at my church, and we were taken to dance as entertainment at balls, and while people would have dinner, we kids would entertain them. Well, as I was thinking through the tradition tonight, I remembered that's what all the fuss was, where they made a smart pause, and all of us kids were escorted out of the room before the toast.
And now you know why. Yeah. Yeah.
I remember when I did the response to the Toast of the Lassies, I talked about, we have this thing in the UK called the Child Support Agency, who go after people who don't support their children, you know, and I talked about how the Child Support Agency were after the Bard to try and get him to pay for all these kids he'd fathered.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. And
I have attended and entertained at Burns suppers for almost 25 years, I figured out today. But this is so special and unique. This is a first of all the Burns suppers I've been to.
It certainly was.
Well, I can chime in and say thank you for the wonderful humor tonight, and thanks for the heads up on the possible RM+ rating, because it was kind of like ripping off the Band-Aid there. And being an elementary principal that just survived our first day back in school in person again, I needed a laugh and a bourbon, and thank you so much for providing at least one.
Yeah, good deal.
I just wanted to say thanks for hosting this. I don't live somewhere where a Robert Burns night would ever happen. And, you know, this recent year, I just, you know, did one of those ancestry DNA things and found out that my family is originally from Scotland, from Clan McFergus. So, you know, it was pretty special to me to find that out and then be invited to this at the same time. That was pretty cool.
Now, can I say something about that?
Go for it.
But you know, there are two languages, old languages in Scotland. One is Celtic, so that would be MacFergus. But the other one is the Vikings, and that would be Ferguson.
My family, when I did my ancestry tree, it turns out that my family actually has used both of them.
Yeah.
So we used McFergus, and then when they came over here, they switched over to Ferguson.
Yeah.
But you know, Mac is the same as son. So
right.
Both of them mean the son of Fergus.
Yeah. So yeah, that was very, very neat to get to do this right after finding out that, you know, my heritage is Scottish.
Excellent. Or fair bra.
Yeah, there you go. I got everybody.
You have a very quiet mannerly crowd. If I unmute our crowd in a second, you couldn't shut them up.
Yeah, yeah. Liz runs a barn session on Saturday nights out of her kids' barn in Scotland, and yes, there's a lot of
Ireland.
And yes, there's a lot of storytellers there who are vociferous. Yes.
Music, song, and story. Everybody welcome. It's 3:30 EST, and it's good. It's good.
Yeah, you can find Liz easily on Facebook and befriend her. Also, I'm sorry, you guys. I this is a good time to say so because so many of you are Facebook friends with me. I've actually taken a break. I've gone off from Facebook. So when I leave, everything I ever posted disappears. I had to come back on so that we could run this. But if you're looking for me, I'm on Messenger. Look forward to talking to all of you, having a lovely chat with you. And yes, Summer, I'm so glad that Nicholas wasn't there for the toast and response.
Oh, he wanted to hear the bagpipes. My son has wanted to learn to play bagpipes for years. So I put the headphone. Yeah, here he is again. So you want to say hi? Did you like the bagpipes?
Hi, Nicholas.
Take you off. Did you like the bagpipes?
Yes, I did.
Yeah. Do you want to learn how to play?
I want to learn.
Yeah. You're going to say hi. All right. You're supposed to be getting into bed now.
And there might be some words he doesn't want to learn quite yet.
And thankfully, Will was in another room, so because I did not mute.
Yeah, Marie's son is 6, which is even, Nicholas is going for 14, but Marie's son is 6, you know, so. You know.
Will we need a content warning for your thing, Liz?
No, absolutely not. You'll never hear words like that in my barn. We range in age from 12. We had a 12-year-old storyteller from Ohio to our oldest is Jim Delaney, whom Jack and Wendy have heard, a tenor voice. He's 89 years old and his voice is just gorgeous, just lovely.
I've got my stepkids this weekend, so.
Oh,
yeah.
join in. There's nothing salacious. I'm a total control freak, so that the music so fast, my little feet couldn't touch the ground. Yeah. People say, do you have a co-host? I said, absolutely not. I'm in charge, you know.
Liz, you have the button?
And I will use it.
Remember that.
Hey, Liz.
David.
Is Ginger close by?
No, Ginger's out in the wash house. He sleeps on top of the tumble dryer.
Smart
dog. Hold on, do you see the dog?
Where's Eric? How's Eric?
Yeah, there's Eric. Hey,
handsome. He sleeps through every session. He sleeps through all my sessions. So he's
Excellent.
Really great dog. He's been at more storytelling workshops than most people have had hot dinners. Great dog.
Can I talk to David?
Me?
He's here.
I'm here.
Are you there, David?
Yes,
He's
sir.
here.
You are not going anywhere tomorrow.
Yeah, he knows. He knows.
Does anybody get any snow? We can't go anywhere because we've got lots of snow.
Keep it.
It's supposed to be 61 here tomorrow,
Yeah.
and then 2 days later, it's supposed to be 30.
Yeah.
It's about 30 here tonight, actually. The snow has like deep.
Julie, we need to see your outfit.
Where's Julie?
Well, my dress kilt is too big, so all I did was I've got my.
Oh, that's nice, lovely plaid.
Yeah, with my little, I've got my little pin. I'm Clan Wallace, and this, by the way, is the proper Wallace, not that bullshit that was worn in that movie. My people did not paint their damn faces blue. My dad's people did, but my blessed mother, from whom I am descended, is, you know.
There you go.
Every woman on this Zoom knows exactly what I'm talking about.
I should have told my Mel Gibson story. That would have been appropriate.
Oh, all ears. And Scott wants to hear the story too.
So I was reminding Wendy that back in the 1960s, or even the 1950s, on television in Britain, in the UK, the newsreaders only dressed properly from the waist up.
All right, so we're
It's a bit like Zoom. It's just like Zoom. You have no idea what I've got wearing underneath this.
Yeah, they were.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I need to show you
We have to show
how
you what
I
we're
am dressed
wearing.
for tonight.
And we-
So
yeah.
So here's the first, the early part, the top part, right?
Right. Beautiful. Very smart.
Yeah, I'm wearing my. Can you see it? I'm wearing my.
I see it.
Do not raise that leg. Do not raise that leg, sir.
Down below.
Jeans and slippers. I love it.
So do I stand up and show my pants on the bottom or what?
It's transatlantic, you know, because the bottom
purple eyes.
and the top half is Scotland.
I know. It's called fusion.
Yes.
Yes.
Fusion.
Or I can think of other words, Liz, but
I was going to say, if it was a chocolate bar, he'd eat himself. I love that expression.
Yeah.
Liz, what are you doing? It's
2 o'clock in the morning or
it's 2
something.
o'clock in the morning.
I'm always up at this. No, it's not. It's only 1:15.
Okay.
I'm always up at this time of the morning. I'm usually watching something really deep, like Married at First Sight in Australia.
Say yes to the dress.
And
yeah.
Aileen's still here as well, for goodness sake.
And actually, I'll tell you what I'm doing right now. When, is it Summer said our son was interested in piping, there's a very good young piper in Scotland who was offering online free chanter tuition.
Oh, great.
I was
That's
trying
good.
to find a link. If I find it, Wendy, I'll send it to you.
Okay.
And you can forward it just in case Summer's son wanted to give it a bash if he's got a chanter. So it wasn't that I wasn't listening or paying attention. I haven't found it.
No,
but I
you,
know